had hit ploughed into a tree trunk. Its bonnet burst open, its windscreen gone, half its roof caved in. It seemed to have split and exploded. The car behind, undamaged until this point, crashed into its rear, and its boot lid sprang open. That was the silver Honda which had been his quarry. As its driver got out of it, screaming, her hands up in the air, he knew he had failed. He waited no longer but picked up the backpack and moved, looking back once to see the leading car burst into flames. In the brilliant light that illuminated everything, he saw for the first time the woman he had tried to kill. George Marshalson had slept badly. He always did when Amber was out. Going to bed soon after she had left the house, he had slept for an hour or two, then woken and lain awake, no longer comforted by the presence of Diana next to him. It was August, and the night was warm, humid, and sticky in spite of the wide-open windows. He lay listening to the sounds of the night, a bird, its name unknown, giving its eerie wail. The bathroom summoned him, reminding him with a twinge that, as with most men of his age, his prostate gland was no longer in perfect working order. He parted the floor-length curtains an inch and felt a breath of air on his face. He thought how wonderful it would be if something had happened to send her home early. That wretched club closed, for instance, or even a police raid, though he hardly supposed Amber did things to attract police attention. Or did she? You never knew with the young these days. Still, it would be wonderful to close these curtains, part them again, and see her walking down the lane. He dropped the curtains and stood looking at Diana. She slept silently, one hand up against her cheek. I wonder if she's got someone, he thought. Someone else, as they say. It suddenly seemed obscene to him to share a bed with a man when you had some other lover. But perhaps she hadn't. Probably she hadn't. She was just indifferent to him, as he was to her. In any case, he didn't care. On the rare occasions when he thought about it, he realized he didn't really care much about anyone or anything except Amber. He fell back into a restless sleep. A sound woke him. A car in the lane. That boy might have brought her home. He usually dropped her at the corner, but he might have brought her home. He got up and went out onto the landing. If she had come home, she would have closed her bedroom door. It was wide open. The chaotic untidiness, the unmade bed, the clothes scattered, tossed about, abandoned, confronted him, the offense they usually gave him softened by the moonlit dark. She wasn't home. A cry came to him that wasn't from a bird, but from a baby. If it had been left to George, he would have let the baby cry, though he had never let Amber cry. He went into the bedroom and saw Diana sitting on the side of the bed, stark naked. She slept like that. She always had. She stood up without speaking to him, threw on the blue silk robe she had taken off at bedtime, and went to see to the baby. It took her about 10 minutes to calm him. When she came back, he had the light on and was sitting up in bed. "She hasn't come in," she said. "I know." "You're going to have to put your foot down, aren't you? You're going to have to tell her this sort of behavior is wholly unacceptable. If she wants to live under our roof and enjoy the advantages of living here, she'll have to be in by midnight at the latest. She's only just 18, for God's sake." "She's going, isn't she? In November?" She made no answer. She'll be relieved, he thought. He turned off the light and went to the bathroom and put on his clothes. He thought now, putting his long-held fear into words, something must have happened to her. The thing that happens to 18-year-old girls out alone at night. It was 10 to 5 and growing light. Outside, the air, which for hours had been heavy and close, felt fresh and cool. He thought, I'll walk down to the corner. I will walk along the road, miles if necessary, until I find her, and if I don't, at least I won't be at home in that bed beside that woman hearing that baby cry. The only houses in Mill Lane were his own, and 100 yards from it, on the other side, a terrace of 3 small villas. Why they had been built there 150 years ago, to house whom, no one seemed to know. Outside the middle one, a car stood parked by the grass verge. Briefly, George wondered why John Brooks left his car there overnight when there was room for it on his driveway. Walking on the Jewel Terrace side, he came to the end of Mill Lane and looked up and down the Myfleet Road. It was long and straight at this point, a single carriageway with fields and woods on either side of it, cat's eyes down its centre, but no traffic signs or road markings. Walking along that road was pointless. He turned around and began to walk back on the other side. She might have stopped over with one of her King's Markham friends, Lara, or was she called Megan, or Samantha, or Chris? He was clinging to straws, and he knew it. He felt them float away from him downstream. He stepped onto the grass verge, preferring its soft feel underfoot, looked to the left of him into the shade of the trees, and saw something white gleaming there, half hidden by the tall, attenuated weeds. A hammer knocked at his heart, and a tide of terror tore through him. For a moment he couldn't move, only stand there with blindness enclosing his eyes. He took a step toward the white thing. Trying to see was the most painful thing he had ever done, but he had to do it. He had to look. He saw her outflung hand, that stupid white watch with the golem face, and he fell forward. In a faint, perhaps, he didn't know, or just because lying across her body was the only place to be. How long he lay there, he was never sure. He wanted to die. He thought that if he willed it hard enough, he would die, and they would be found together. The delivery man bringing newspapers to his house in Jewel Terrace left his van at the corner and, walking down the lane, found him and her. When he refused to move, the delivery man phoned the police and waited for them to come. The woman who emerged from the house as they came up the drive had a child of about a year in her arms. Wexford and Detective Sergeant Hannah Goldsmith introduced themselves, and the woman said, "He's asleep. Our doctor has him under sedation." "I'd like to talk to you," Wexford said. "You are Mrs. Marshalson?" She nodded. Wexford had never before known a case of a father finding the murdered body of his daughter, never thought to see a bereaved parent prone over his child's corpse. He had daughters of his own, but he could barely imagine himself in George Marshalson's position. Once the man had been persuaded to go home, had been taken home, the pathologist had come. The photographers had come, the scene of crime officer, the whole panoply of those who attend a murder scene. For his part, Wexford had needed to register only that she was very young, still in her teens, very good-looking, and that death had come through a violent blow to the head with a brick or piece of masonry. He questioned the paperman who had found him and her. Then he and Hannah had walked down the lane toward Clifton, the Marshalsons' house. Already the heat they were so used to that it had begun to feel normal was closing in. Clifton's front garden was flowerless, its shrubs wilting and its lawns yellow. The front door of the house opened, and the woman came out before they were in talking distance. Politically correct to a degree Wexford thought ridiculous, Hannah said to him in the kindly and forbearing tone she often used when speaking to him, "That will be his partner. His wife, most likely." Hannah gave him the sort of look she kept for a middle-aged man who still called the woman he had married his wife. They followed Mrs. Marshalson into the house. The child, a little boy, looked heavy to carry, and she set him down. Not yet able to walk, he crawled rapidly across the polished wood floor, saying, "Mama, Mama." Diana Marshalson took no notice of him. "Come in here. I don't know what I can tell you. He's absolutely broken." Their expressions must have told her the misapprehension both were under. "Oh, I'm not Amber's mother. I'm George's second wife." They went into a spacious living room, its French windows wide open. He had already learned that the Marshalsons were interior designers, based at Marshalson Studio Design and Restoration in the Kingsbrook Centre of Kings Markham. Wexford sat down on a dark grey sofa, Hannah on a pale grey armchair, Diana Marshalson in another. "What made your husband go out into the lane first thing this morning, Mrs. Marshalson? What time was it, exactly?" "I don't know," she said. "I was asleep. He worried terribly when she was out at night. I suppose he realized she hadn't come in." "He went out to look for her?" Hannah sounded incredulous. "I suppose so. He must have known, well, either that she wouldn't be there or that something awful had happened, but I don't know. He went out. I woke up when the child cried. That was at 6:30. Diana Marshalson, Wexford thought, looked young enough to be this child's mother, but only just, maybe 45 or 46, a second wife who had perhaps never been married before and wanted a baby before it was too late. He adored Amber. She was only just 18. What happened? "Early days to say," said Hannah. "She's dead. She was attacked. Really, that's all we know." The little boy tried to climb onto Diana Marshalson's lap. To Wexford it seemed that she hauled him up wearily and without much enthusiasm. "Amber went out last evening. What time would that have been, and where did she go?" She went clubbing to a place called Bling Bling in Kings Markham between 8:30 and 9.